In military organizations, an artillery battery is a unit of guns, mortars, rockets or missiles grouped to facilitate better battlefield communication and command and control, as well as to provide dispersion for its constituent gunnery crews and the systems. The term is also used in a naval context to describe groups of guns on warships. Land usage. Historically, the term battery referred to a cluster of cannon in action as a group, either in a temporary field position during a battle or at the siege of a fortress or a city. Such batteries could be a mixture of cannon, howitzer, or mortar types. A siege could involve many batteries at different sites around the besieged place. The term also came to be used for a group of cannon in a fixed fortification for coastal or frontier defense. During the 18th century, battery began to be used as an organizational term for a permanent unit of artillery in peace and war. Although horse artillery sometimes used troop and fixed-position artillery company, they were usually organized with between 6 and 12 ordnance pieces, often including cannon and howitzers. By the late 19th century, battery had become standard, mostly replacing company or troop. In the 20th century, the term was generally used for the company-level subunit of an artillery branch, including field, air defense, anti-tank and position. Artillery-operated target acquisition emerged during the First World War and were also grouped into batteries and have subsequently expanded to include the complete intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition and reconnaissance spectrum. 20th century firing batteries have been equipped with mortars, guns, howitzers, rockets and missiles. Mobile batteries. During the Napoleonic Wars, some armies started grouping the batteries into larger administrative and field units. Groups of batteries combined for field combat employment called head batteries by Napoleon. Administratively, batteries were usually grouped in battalions, regiments or squadrons, and these developed into tactical organizations. These were further grouped into regiments, simply group, or brigades, that may be wholly composed of artillery units or combined arms in composition. To further concentrate fire of individual batteries from World War I, they were grouped into artillery divisions. In a few armies, coastal artillery sometimes had completely different organizational terms based on shore defense sector areas. Batteries also have subdivisions, which vary across armies and periods but often translate into the English platoon or troop, with individual ordnance systems called a section or subsection, where a section comprises 2 artillery pieces. The rank of a battery commander has also varied, but is usually a lieutenant, captain, or major. The number of guns, howitzers, mortars or launchers in an organizational battery has also varied, with the caliber of guns usually being an important consideration. In the 19th century, 4 to 12 guns was usual as the optimum number to maneuver into the gun line. By late 19th century, the mountain artillery battery was divided into a gun line and an ammunition line. The gun line consisted of 6 guns and 12 ammunition mules. During the American Civil War, artillery batteries often consisted of 6 field pieces for the Union Army and 4 for the Confederate States Army. Although this varied, batteries were divided into sections of 2 guns apiece, each section normally under the command of a lieutenant. The full battery was typically commanded by a captain. Often, particularly as the war progressed, individual batteries were grouped into battalions under a major or colonel of artillery. See field artillery in the American Civil War. In the 20th century, it varied between 4 and 12 for field artillery, or even 2 pieces for very heavy pieces. Other types of artillery, such as anti-tank or anti-aircraft, have sometimes been larger. Some batteries have been dual-equipped with 2 different types of gun or mortar, and taking whichever was more appropriate when they deployed for operations. For the late 19th century, field artillery batteries started to become more complex organizations. First, they needed the capability to carry adequate ammunition. Typically, each gun could only carry about 40 rounds in its limber, so additional wagons were added to the battery, typically about 2 per gun. The introduction on indirect fire in the early 20th century necessitated 2 other groups. Firstly, observers who deployed some distance forward of the gun line. Secondly, a small staff on the gun position to undertake the calculations to convert the orders from the observers into data that could be set on the gun sights. This in turn led to the need for signalers, which further increased as the need to concentrate the fire of dispersed batteries emerged, and the introduction fire control staff at artillery headquarters above the batteries. Fixed battery. Fixed artillery refers to guns or howitzers on mounts that were either anchored in one spot or on carriages intended to be moved only for the purposes of aiming, and not for tactical repositioning. These were in distinction from field artillery guns positioned within forts. Such mounts were typically used in forts or permanent defensive batteries, such as coastal artillery. By the end of the 19th century, batteries of this sort were equipped with much larger guns than field artillery units could utilize, and the gun emplacement was only one part of an extensive installation that included magazines and systems to deliver ammunition from the magazines to the guns. Although such batteries were useful where permanent defenses were required, especially with artillery capable of firing at long ranges, they became increasingly vulnerable to naval fire as the size and range of naval artillery outstripped that of coastal artillery, and to air attack with the advent of powered flight. Naval usage. The term battery has also been used in association with warships. Early warships that mounted guns, such as the ship of the line, mounted dozens of cannons, carronades, and other guns in broadsides, sometimes on several decks. This remained the standard layout for centuries, until new designs, such as the revolving turret, made it obsolete. The first operational use of a rotating turret was on the American ironclad Monitor, designed by John Erickson. Other designs used open barbets to house the main batteries on rotating mounts. Both designs allowed naval engineers to dramatically reduce the number of guns present in the battery, by giving a handful of guns the ability to concentrate on either side of the ship. A revolution in ship armament occurred in 1906, with the completion of HMS Dreadnought. In previous battleship designs, the primary battery often consisted of 4 large-caliber guns in 2 turrets, one forward and the other aft. The ships also had a mixed secondary battery of smaller guns that were also intended to be used offensively. The differences in gun calibers and ranges made it difficult to accurately judge shell splashes, and thus to fire the guns accurately, which led to decreased effectiveness of the ships. Dreadnoughts designed did away with the offensive secondary battery, and replaced it with 10 heavy-caliber guns, and a smaller secondary battery to be used for self-defense. This leap in armament made all other battleships obsolete. Often, ships have a primary battery for offensive purposes, and a secondary and sometimes even a tertiary battery for self-defense. An example of this was the German battleship Bismarck, which carried a primary battery of 8 380mm guns, a secondary battery of 12 150mm guns for defense against destroyers and torpedo boats, as well as a tertiary battery of various anti-aircraft guns ranging in caliber from 105 to -20mm. Many later ships used dual-purpose guns to combine the secondary battery and the heavier guns of the tertiary batteries. In order to simplify the design, most modern vessels have largely done away with conventional artillery. instead using cruise and guided missiles for most offensive and defensive purposes, respectively. Guns are retained for niche roles, such as the Phalanx CIWS, a multi-barrel rotary cannon used for point defense, the Mark Chapter 45 5-inch, or the Autobrader 76mm, which is used for close defense against surface combatants and shore bombardment. Modern battery organization. In modern battery organization, the military unit typically has 6 to 8 howitzers, 6 to 9 rocket launchers, and 100 to 200 personnel, and is the equivalent of a company. In terms of organization level, in the United States Army, generally a towed howitzer battery has 6 guns, whereas self-propelled battery contains 8. They are subdivided into field batteries, equipped with 105mm howitzers or equivalent, medium batteries, equipped with 155mm howitzers or equivalent, heavy batteries, which are equipped with guns of 203mm or more caliber, but are now very rare, and various more specialized types, such as anti-aircraft, missile, or multiple launch rocket system batteries. Headquarters batteries, which themselves have no artillery pieces, but are rather the command and control organization for a group of firing batteries. The battery is typically commanded by a captain in U.S. forces and is equivalent to an infantry company. A U.S. Army battery is divided into the following units: the firing section, which includes the individual gun sections. Each gun section is typically led by a staff sergeant. The firing section as a whole is usually led by a lieutenant and a senior NCO. The Fire Direction Center, which computes firing solutions based on map coordinates, receives fire requests and feedback from observers and infantry units, and communicates directions to the firing section. It also receives commands from higher headquarters. Other armies can be significantly different, however. For example, the United Kingdom and Commonwealth forces have classified batteries according to the caliber of the guns. Typically, field light batteries, equipped with 105mm howitzers, are smaller. Medium batteries, equipped with larger calibers, up to 155mm howitzers or equivalent. Heavy batteries with larger calibers, although until after World War II 155mm were classified as heavy. Various more specialized types, such as anti-aircraft, missile, or multiple launch rocket system batteries. Headquarters batteries, which themselves have no artillery pieces, but are rather the command and control organization for a group of firing batteries. The basic field organization being the gun group and the tactical group, the former being reconnaissance and survey guns, command posts, logistic and equipment support elements, the latter being the battery commander and observation teams that deploy with the supported arm. In these armies, the guns may be split into several fire units, which may deploy dispersed over an extended area or be concentrated into a single position. In some cases, batteries have operationally deployed as 6 totally separate guns, although sections are more usual. A battery commander, or BC, is a major. However, in these armies the battery commander leads the tactical group, and is usually located with the headquarters of the infantry or armored unit the battery is supporting. Increasingly, these direct support battery commanders are responsible for the orchestration of all forms of fire support as well as artillery. General support battery commanders are likely to be at brigade or higher headquarters. The gun group is commanded by the battery captain, the battery's second in command. However, this position has no technical responsibilities. Its primary concern is administration, including ammunition supply. Local defense and is based in the wagon lines, a short distance from the actual gun position, where the gun towing and logistic vehicles are concealed. Technical control is by the gun position officer, who is also the reconnaissance officer. The battery has two command posts, one active and one alternate. The latter provides backup in the event of casualties, but primarily moves with the preparation party to the next gun position and becomes the main CP there. Each CP is controlled by a command post officer, who is usually a lieutenant, second lieutenant, warrant officer class 2. Gun positions may be tight, perhaps 150 times 150 meters when the counter-battery threat is low, or gun maneuver areas where pairs of self-propelled guns move around a far larger area if the counter-battery threat is high. During the Cold War, NATO batteries that were dedicated to a nuclear role generally operated as sections, comprising a single gunner launcher. Groupings of mortars, when they are not operated by artillery, are usually referred to as platoons. United States Marine Corps, 155 mm howitzer battery, artillery battalion, artillery regiment, Marine division, fleet in Marine Force, battery headquarters, headquarters section, battery CO, battery 1 SDSGT, +3 Marines, communications section -16 Marines, led by the radio chief, maintenance section 11 Marines, led by the battery motor transport chief, medical section 3 Navy hospital corpsmen, liaison section, led by the liaison officer, liaison team 5 Marines, led by the observer liaison chief, forward observer team 4 Marines, led by a forward observer. Firing platoon, ammunition section 17 Marines, led by the ammunition chief, headquarters section, platoon commander, battery XO, battery gunnery sergeant, and local security chief, platoon sergeant, battery operations center 5 Marines, led by the assistant XO, FDO, and in operations assistant, fire direction center 9 Marines, led by the fire direction officer and the operations chief, artillery section 10 Marines, led by the section chief, with a gunner, 2 assistant gunners, 5 cannoneers, and a motor vehicle operator to operate and maintain the prime mover. Other armies can be significantly different, however. For example, the basic field organization being the gun group and the tactical group, the former being reconnaissance and survey guns, command posts, logistic and equipment support elements, the latter being the battery commander and observation teams that deploy with the supported arm. In these armies, the guns may be split into several fire units, which may deploy dispersed over an extended area or be concentrated into a single position. In some cases, batteries have operationally deployed as 6 totally separate guns, although sections are more usual.